Okay, so I'm not gonna put a shocking title in my thumbnail and then make you wade through 16 minutes of a vlog to get to what I'm talking about. So if you're only interested in the shocking part, meet me right here. I'm also gonna try to put a chapter in the video, but I'm still new. So if that doesn't work, just meet me here. Otherwise, enjoy the vlog. Well, it's week 3 of my Summer with Lisa Kleypas challenge, which means that I am on the official book 2. It happened one autumn. Hi, it's Bea, and welcome to my channel, Mama Needs to Read Some Romance, because nobody in this book is going to lose every single glue cap from every single glue stick in the house. Where are the caps? Someday I'm gonna find so many caps. I have a confession. I don't know if you're gonna like this, but Lillian is my least favorite wallflower. Oh, I hate saying that because I love all of them, I do. But Lillian gets on my nerves a little bit. The good news is though, Marcus is one of my most favorite gentlemen from the Wallflowers series. So even though it's Lillian and I'm like, Lillian, at least there's Marcus. We also have in this book, Sebastian, Lord St. Vincent. Oh, getting myself ready to meet him again. I am very excited about him coming back on the scene. Although if you remember this book, he doesn't come out smelling like a rose. Also, of course, we have the other girls from the Wallflower series, and Annabelle is newly married to Simon at this point, which is so lovely. I love seeing them together. It's very exciting. But obviously this book is all about Lillian and how she and Marcus are going to fall in love. But man, are they going to butt heads first. And I guess during and after. But I mean, I love being back at Stony Cross Park. I'm so excited to jump right back in where I feel like now I'm currently living in my mind half the time. I'm mostly doing this via Audible. And it's nice. Rosalind Landor is a decent narrator, but I will be honest, I'm really excited for Mary Jane Wells in the next book. I feel like she's just perfection. If you've never read it before, read along with me. There are going to be spoilers after this part, so do be aware. I'm going to go throughout the week. I'm going to check in with you as I go. I'm also going to tell you what song I believe is the love theme for this particular couple, which is one of my favorite things to do. I know it's bizarre, but I love it. If you've already read this book, then come along and join me to relive all the magic. All right, here we go. Okay, so I just finished chapter 3. They're buying perfume that's supposed to be a magic potion, a love potion, and we'll see if it winds up working. So they get to Stony Cross Park, and I am so excited to see that Olivia is now Lady Olivia Shaw. She's married to Gideon, and they even talk about how Aileen and McKenna are so happy in New York. I was just so happy to hear that. Of course, the characters from, again, the magic, and Marcus is in a bad mood because he knows that Lillian and Daisy are coming, but he needs them to come with their parents because he is trying to make a soap deal with her father, who's like the soap king of New York. So Lillian and Daisy get locked away in one of the bedrooms at Stony Cross Park, and Lillian picks the lock, and they're out and about having some fun against their mother's wishes because she wanted them to rest and be fresh, and they're not interested. So they find a rounders game and they start playing and having a good old time. Well, that rounders game gets pretty interesting pretty quickly when Marcus gets on the scene, and whew, steamy stuff. So they're going back to the house and they can't be seen because obviously they broke out. So he actually hides Lillian in a bush, and guess what? Sparks start flying, he starts kissing, and she's thinking that perfume, the love potion, it works. Oh man, it's hot out, but I still get out for a walk. My 2-year-old has a fever today, so all the things we planned for today and tomorrow are canceled. So we're gonna be in the house. Thank goodness I have my audiobook. I'm still at Stony Cross Park in between, tending to my 3 adorable kiddos that are messing up the house so quick it's not even funny. Before I continue, I have to say something I forgot in the first 3 chapters of the book. Lillian and Daisy, when they get out of the house, when they escape, they go to the well, and Daisy makes a wish with a hairpin that Lord Westcliff will find a woman that brings him to his knees. And let me tell you, I think that's already happening. I just finished chapter 6, and man, is this interesting. So Lillian does confess to Annabelle and Evie and Daisy. All the gals are back together again, which is lovely. They're talking over breakfast. Annabelle is happily married. Poor Evie, though, she is getting just terribly treated by her family. They're withholding food and they're keeping her locked up. Like, you just feel so badly for her. But she's gonna have her lovely ending next book. So, looking forward to that. Annabelle's kind of dubious, but they're trying to figure out, is the reason that Lord Westcliff kissed Lillian in the bushes because of her perfume? They decide they're all going to wear it and see what happens. I think Daisy's really excited to see if she can catch a man, or they're wondering if maybe they're all just going to see what happens to Lord Westcliff if they're wearing the perfume. We're going to find out. We also cut to Lord Westcliff Marcus, and he is in his study, I believe, with, 3 other guys. Man, would I love to be in this room. We've got Gideon Shaw, Olivia's husband. So he is the new brother-in-law of Marcus, and it's just so good to see him. He's his usual humorous, witty, quick-witted self, as well as Simon Hunt, who is the first time we see him in the book. Again, he's very happily married now to Annabelle. And we also have Sebastian, Lord St. Vincent. He's already proving himself to be a rake, complaining about a woman trying to commit suicide because he left her, and she was married, and he said that it was her problem. So we already see that this guy's kind of a rogue, but he was always good to Marcus, so Marcus is still friends with him. We cut to a little bit later in the evening. Marcus decides he's going to apologize to Lillian. They go into the orangery, which I believe is how you pronounce that. It's so beautifully described, just picturing that scene. They're in this dark room that's scented with oranges. You've got the starlight coming in from the glass ceiling, and he apologizes to her and basically says, I would never be with you. You're just awful. And she's like, okay, you can stop apologizing and telling me that. And then she says, well, you can make it up to me by having your mom be Daisy's and my sponsor for the season. That way that we'll be sure to get husbands. He's not going to go for that. And so she says, no, she really wants him to do that. And then she also says, well, let's see if you can resist my charms. And so she challenges him. She calls him a coward. And so he can't deny just the challenge. He goes and he puts his arms around her, and before he knows it, he's got her pressed up against a wall, and it is hot in there, and not just because they're trying to grow oranges. It's really good stuff. So we're gonna see what happens next. Oh man, what a day. I don't know what's harder, taking care of a sick toddler or trying to keep her 2 older brothers reined in. They had nowhere to go, nothing to do, no people to see. We had to cancel everything because she had a high fever. So, but she's doing well right now. Thankfully, I just showed you in the video, my husband let me break out for a little bit, and I went to the library, grabbed some books. The boys decided that it's 3 Little Pigs week this week, so I got a bunch of different takes on the 3 Little Pigs. And while I was there, I went to the little book sale area and grabbed 2 copies of some books I'm super excited about. $1 for 2 incredible books that I can't wait to read, so that was a good deal. But anyway, back to It Happened One Autumn. I just finished chapter 10. Man, has a lot happened. I can't wait to talk about it. I love rereading books because you always pick up on things in the reread that you didn't get before. And the thing I had forgotten about was that Marcus, because he was such a great horseman, his jump course, or whatever you call it, is a lot more challenging than a typical jump course. And so Lillian was gonna try to attempt that jump course side saddle, which she had never done before. Now, Annabelle knew that the course was a lot harder, and she was really nervous, and she was very fearful for Lillian, who of course is going to be stubborn and try to do everything, even though maybe it's not a great idea. So Annabelle told Simon, who then told Marcus, and then Marcus told Lillian, no, I don't think so, you're not gonna do that. And of course, Lillian's gonna do what Lillian's gonna do. So she goes and she tries a jump, and he then follows her, snaps her up, puts her over his big old thighs, and then tumbles her to the ground with her, and he is so furious. But it's because he's starting to really develop feelings for her, and he was really scared. Of course, he doesn't tell her that. Then we have Sebastian Lawrence St. Vincent. He comes in, and he decides to take her away. And then Simon goes, Marcus, are you sure that was a good idea? Because pretty much every lady is on the menu for him. In fact, Sebastian's always got these incredible lines. He's got the best dialogue, I think, of any of the characters. And I love when Lillian asks him, are you a vegetarian? And he goes, no, I'm a cannibal. And then Marcus is like, Sebastian. I love it. Oh, Sebastian. So poor Lillian. She gets a cramp in her thigh, and sadly she has to submit to Sebastian massaging that thigh to get the muscle back to normal. And I just felt for her. It was so terrible, Lillian. How did you get through that? Yes. And then we find out, of course, Lillian's parents discover she's had a huge fight with Marcus over the horse jump, and oh my gosh, they're freaking out because they think this is the end of their husband hunting opportunities. And so her parents tell her, you're not leaving the room. You have to apologize to Marcus. And Daisy said, look, because this was the only thing that was going to convince Lillian to do it, you can bother him way more if you're not in your room. So that was the only thing that convinced Lillian to go apologize. But then when she goes to apologize, he's like super magnanimous about it. He apologizes back to her, and all of a sudden they've got this flirtation really going on, and that was exciting. It bleeds over into dinner, and I should say bleed, that's terrible, but actually that almost goes well with what happened. She gets really sick when they deliver, or they have calf's head at the table. So I love where Marcus is like, come outside with me and look for the spotted dingy dipper, a butterfly. And so he and Daisy and Lillian all go out. He's been watching her closely. She was even seated near him at the table, and he just wanted to make sure that she was feeling okay. So he's just taking good care of her and just being so sweet. Then we find out that he has convinced his mother to be the sponsor for Daisy and Lillian. But unfortunately, Daisy and Lillian have to go visit with her. And this woman is just horrendous. She's like the worst mother-in-law ever, or future mother-in-law. And yeah, she's just trying to tell the girls all the rules, and she's just telling them how much she dislikes them and how many rules they break. So as we end chapter 10, Lillian is sliding down her chair in depression over the fact that now she has to spend 2 hours with this woman, as well as countless more, in order to rope in a guy in the upcoming season. What's gonna happen next? Welcome to Clutter Town. I'm so sorry, it's late, but I didn't want to forget to do this. We had sick kids today, and everyone was very grumpy and needy and wanting to be held. But I still had a chance to go to Stony Cross Park in my mind, which was lovely. I just finished chapter 13. Lillian continued to get attention from Sebastian and Marcus. In fact, Sebastian even kissed her in the gardens at night. And I have to say, Marcus and Lillian shared an incredible dance. I loved it. They are so into their feelings right now. They really realize that they are falling for one another. Although my favorite scene was Marcus getting the letter from Aileen and McKenna. They just had a baby, John McKenna II, and I couldn't be more happy for them. Speaking of characters from, again, The Magic, we also saw Gideon and Olivia sort of getting it on out in the back gardens during the ball. And I remember reading this the first time, not having read again The Magic, and I thought, this is so weird. Why is there a random couple like making out and undressing? And now I'm totally thinking that they're just so cute. So, this is what happens when you read the books in the right order. It actually helps. Anyway, Sebastian is sweet-talking Lillian's and Daisy's mom, and they're going to go for a carriage ride, and Marcus is none too thrilled. Also, there's a secret butterfly garden that Marcus takes Lillian into where I have just stopped, and it's going to be very steamy, I have a feeling. It is Friday evening, and I'm so thankful. It's been the longest week ever. Luckily, I've had it happen one autumn to get me through the week. So I just finished chapter, I'm putting it on the bottom because I can't remember. So Marcus and Lillian are in the secret garden, and he definitely puts the moves on her, which is very steamy, extremely steamy. But then he humiliates her by basically, I think he gets scared by his feelings for her, and he tells her, "Oh, well, obviously you couldn't stand up to Sebastian because you couldn't stand up to me. And you're obviously more attracted to Sebastian than me because you think he's more attractive. And look how I was able to seduce you." So he humiliates her. She leaves just furious. And then he has a side conversation with Simon Hunt and says, "Look, we could never be together. As much as I have feelings for her, I can't do anything about them because we're from different worlds, basically." And everybody knows, as does Lillian, she keeps thinking about it, he's expected to marry well to continue that incredible line that he has, especially because both of his sisters married Americans. So he can't do anything but marry, like a British aristocrat, essentially. Now, in the meantime, Lillian has a conversation with Sebastian, and he tells her that he is planning on asking her father if he can court her. She should take it well, I think, not knowing that the other thing we find out, Sebastian's out of money. So he needs somebody who's got a lot of money. And that's why he's asking Lillian, I believe. So Lillian realizes she should be happy, and she goes to the library to look at books to distract herself and winds up drinking a ton of pear brandy. And Marcus finds her in the library, and she's drunk, and he just realizes not only is he falling for her, but he can't keep himself from her anymore. And he gives in. And they have a bit of a love connection there in the library. And then he takes her to his bedroom. So I thought I knew the Wallflowers, and I thought I knew these books. And I was very shocked by this. I was roaming around chapter 18 because I was trying to remember where I'd stopped. And I'm skimming and scanning, trying to remember where I was. And I was going back a little bit, and there was a sex scene. And I thought, I know I'm sleep deprived because my 2-year-old has decided she only wants to sleep in my arms apparently right now because she's sick. But how did I miss a whole sex scene? I don't know how I did that. And then I started skimming through it to see how on earth I was that sleep deprived that I just didn't notice. And what I found was very disturbing to me. So, okay, this was published in 2004, and the audiobook that I've listened to was published in April of 2021. And it says in the end that portions of it have been redone. And I know that that is super controversial. Yes, I've been a YouTuber for 1 month, and I'm coming in hot, or coming out of the gate hot, I guess. I'm covering a controversial topic like right off. I don't know if that's a great idea, but this kind of fell in my lap, so I thought I would just discuss it. So in this version, in chapter 18, Marcus takes Lillian, who is drunk, up to his room and takes her virginity. She thinks it's a dream. There is no real consent here. I mean, I was completely shocked. And for me, I know some people don't want books ever changed, but for me, that totally, if they had kept that in the 2021 version, it would have completely changed how I felt about Marcus. For me, Marcus is the epitome of honor, integrity. He's a gentleman. We already know from, again, The Magic and Secrets of a Summer Night that he does whatever he can for his friends. He's all about protecting them. They literally talk about how he protects his sisters, and he's concerned for people. And for him to just, and he even said afterwards, he goes, "I took advantage of you." What? Oh, that really upset me. That really bothered me. I want a Marcus who is a good man, an honorable man. And what he did to Lillian was not honorable. And then afterwards, he says he's going to clean her up. So he takes a sheet that she's covered with and pulls it off of her completely. So she's naked and she's embarrassed. And he's like, "I'm surprised you're embarrassed." I mean, this sounds like a completely different man to me. And I have to say, if I had just read this, I don't know that I would have continued on with this book or with this series or with Lisa Kleypas, to be honest. I have said it before and I'll say it again. I like my men in romance novels to be honorable, to put their women first, to love them fiercely. And for him to do something like this, it changes his entire character. It changes everything for me. Instead of being some honorable man, he's just some arrogant know-it-all who's going to boss people around. And yes, he's done good things, but I feel like if he were to do that to Lillian, it just changes how I feel about him. So I'm really glad that she changed it, and I'm sure that people have strong feelings the other way as well, talking about banning books, talking about, rewriting books. And I get it. I get both sides. But for me, I'm someone who wants to relax and I want to feel safe when I read a book and I want to enjoy that. And if I'm having concerns that the hero in my story isn't going to ask for consent, I just can't enjoy that. I cannot get behind that. So that's how I feel. So I did this book last week, and there was also a pretty significant rewrite in this book as well. Now, since I already did the video on this last week, and obviously this video is not about Secrets of a Summer Night, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the rewrite in my Wallflowers recap ranking video, which if it's in mid-July, I'm going to have it linked above, or I'll just let you know it should be coming out in a few weeks. So in the audiobook version, what happens in chapter 18 is Marcus takes Lillian up to his room and just lets her sleep it off. And then he says, you know what, everybody thinks that you are compromised because you've been in my room all afternoon, so we need to get married. And it doesn't sound very appealing to Lillian. It sounds like he's doing it out of a sense of obligation, and she wants romance, she wants love from him, so she turns him down. And then she gets furious the next morning when she discovers that Marcus has been talking to her father. Now, she believes that he's going behind her back to set up the marriage, and she's furious. So she goes down in her pajamas, in her nightgown, to his study where he's there with Sebastian, and the two of those men fall all over themselves trying to come to her aid and cover her up with their own coats, and both are arguing that she is theirs. And again, I'm just so happy that I got the audiobook version first as opposed to the book version, because I just think of him still, thanks to the audiobook, as a gentleman who he told Sebastian that he compromised her, but he didn't really, because he's a gentleman. And they do wind up, after Sebastian leaves, they do really fall for one another. They talk about their feelings for one another, and then they get a little hot and heavy in his study. Simon walks in and discovers them on the floor together, and he definitely spills the beans to Annabelle, who then tells Daisy and Evie. And Lillian can tell, because when she's having breakfast with them later, they said, hey, does anybody have any scoop to dish, basically? And they all know. So Lillian does say to them that she is going to marry Marcus, and that's her big news. But somebody else has big news. Annabelle is going to have a baby, and they are just overjoyed. So Marcus and his mother have an exchange of words. It's pretty intense. Olivia is there, and Marcus tells his mother that he's going to marry Lillian, and his mother basically says, no, you can just have an affair with her, but you need to continue the line because you're our last chance, and we have the longest royal lineage in the country. So you're not going to screw that up by marrying an American. And he tells her, no, I'm sorry, that's not what's going to happen. I've always put the family first. Again, because he's a gentleman and because he's honorable and he has integrity. So there you have it again. But he says, I'm going to marry her. And if you don't like it, get out. And he means like exiled. And his mother is none too pleased. Olivia then goes and finds Lillian. They go back to the orangery where Marcus and Lillian shared a kiss earlier in the book. And Olivia and Lillian have a heart-to-heart. And it's really important because Olivia shares a lot about Marcus to Lillian and helps Lillian understand Marcus's background and why he's been guarded and why he's so fiercely protective, and just what kind of man he is. So they have a really great conversation, and Olivia realizes very quickly, because Lillian is defending Olivia, what Olivia says about Marcus if she says anything unkind. Olivia knows. Lillian has shared that she wants to marry Marcus and that she's in love with him. So Lillian and Marcus meet up in his room, a special clandestine meeting to talk about their contract. Essentially, they're making a contract for their marriage as far as what they want, what each of them wants. So they're both going to be happy, and there are going to be compromises involved. And Marcus makes it clear that this is not about money. This is about like how much time are we spending in the country versus the city, etc. And they wind up having their very first love scene together, the first real one. It's a rewrite of what happened in chapter 18 in this book. And it's so much better. And he's even concerned about how she's going to feel because it's her first time. And he's very caring and very loving. And it's so beautiful. And again, like I just can't even, I'm so thankful that they rewrote this. And again, I know that's not super popular, but share your thoughts in the comments for sure. For me, it was so much better later in the book when she is not drunk and he is caring about her and her feelings. And yeah, it's just, for me, no comparison. No comparison. Different book. Different book. And I have to share, this is pretty funny. Lillian confesses that she believes she roped Marcus in under false pretenses because she truly believes that her perfume is what really seduced him. And he basically laughs that off. It was so cute though. This is where the story gets even crazier. So the following morning, Lillian is with Daisy in her room and a maid comes to the door and says, "Hey, someone would like to have a word with you." And Daisy doesn't hear who it is. It seems very secretive. And Lillian says, "All right, I'm gonna go. I'll tell you more about it later." Lillian ends up meeting Marcus's mother in the butterfly garden. That's right, the place where Marcus and Lillian also shared a big kiss earlier in the book. Only this time, it is the opposite of enchanting. Lillian realizes that Marcus's mom absolutely despises her, hates her guts, and probably wishes her dead. So, I mean, neither one of them is going to give any ground. Marcus's mother says, "I don't want you marrying my son." Lillian says, "Oh, yes, I am." And so as they are leaving the butterfly garden, Marcus's mother says, "You may proceed." And Lillian was confused, like, what is she talking about? She's letting me walk out of the butterfly garden? Someone grabs her from behind, covers her mouth with a cloth that holds ether, and she goes unconscious. She disappears, and no one can find her for hours. So everybody's been looking for Lillian. They didn't want to worry Marcus, and then finally they do tell him that Lillian is missing, and everybody says this is way against character for her. So they go crazy searching all the grounds. Everyone is looking, and they're looking for anybody that knows anything. Well, turns out Gertie, the maid, does. And Marcus said, "Oh, you better tell me what you know, because if you don't, not only am I going to fire you, I'm going to charge you as an accessory in her disappearance." So Gertie says everything, and Marcus, once he realizes that it is his mother who is the cause of Lillian leaving, he's terrified because he knows his mother is capable of anything. And honestly, I'll just say, I'm not big on cussing in books. However, when he starts letting some words fly on the, heading to his mom and then talking to her, it was so satisfying. I was like, yes, Marcus, you tell her. Oh, I was so glad. Oh, anyway, sometimes the perfectly placed curse words, yes, it warranted that for me. So yes. He tells her she better let him know what's going on. And she initially just lies to him and said, "Oh, Lillian left with Sebastian because she decided to elope with him." Well, Olivia's there, her friends are there. They all say, no. Lillian has no interest in Sebastian. But this does tip off Marcus to let him know that she's with Sebastian. And again, now he's extremely concerned. He knows they're heading to Gretna Green. He knows Sebastian needs money. He knows Sebastian is scrupulous and he's going to do whatever it takes. So he decides to get his two fastest horses, and he and Simon rush off to catch them before she can get married to Sebastian. This is where it gets really controversial, and this is why I know a lot of people don't like the third book, Devil in Winter. It's interesting because, and I'm going to do this book next week, it's the most popular book, and yet there are so many people that say they won't read this book or they didn't like this book because of Sebastian. So I'm really looking forward to doing this next week. So Lillian wakes up in a coach and she realizes that she's with Sebastian. And initially she's really relieved that it's Sebastian. And then she realizes, oh no, this guy's awful. I mean, he's been warning her that he's awful basically the entire book. And I guess she didn't really listen to him because she didn't really know for sure how serious he was. Oh, but he's serious. Now, the part of me that wants to defend him and wants to like him more in book 3 says, I highlight what he said, which was he knew the Marcus's mother was capable of anything. That he assumed, probably rightfully so, because Marcus was also very afraid and he knew his mother well, that the Marcus wasn't going to stop at anything to get Lillian out of the picture. And maybe that included murder. Maybe it did. So Sebastian actually said he was afraid that Marcus's mom was going to do away with Lillian. So he decided to scoop her up because it worked out for him and it worked out better for her. But it was interesting. He talks at one point about taking advantage of her. And she's like, you wouldn't do that. And she truly believes that he would not do that. And I believe that he wouldn't either. And he has the opportunity. At one point when they finally get to an inn, he handcuffs her to the bed and she's like, oh geez, here we go. And he leaves. So, you know, he just wants to get married to her for her money. I think he just figures everything's going to work out. And yeah, I mean, but it's like he's locked his heart away. See, again, I'm defending him. Right now, I guess let's just let him be the villain. In any case, they get to the inn. Lillian uses her lock-picking skills to get out of the handcuffs, to get out of the room, but she doesn't even have time to really ask for help before Marcus arrives. He is so happy to see her, and then he beats the pulp out of Sebastian, which rightfully so. And they decide not to press charges against him because they don't want to create a scandal. So, you know, mixed feelings on that too. This book has so many... it's very controversial, I think, as is, I guess, the next book. But anyway, part of me just feels for Lillian. She's been through the ringer in this book, especially in this version of the book. I was very happy that they had their beautiful ending. They decide rather than waiting to get married, Marcus and Lillian go to Gretna Green. They have a beautiful wedding. And then we fast forward to the epilogue where she discovers through a letter that her perfume was never magical, that it was always just regular perfume. So Marcus did fall in love with her for real reasons and not because he was duped by some sort of a love potion. And then we get to the most interesting cliffhanger of all. Evie shows up at Sebastian's house and he has lost all will to live. It seems like he's all beaten up, he's bruised. He even says that she's welcome to kill him as long as she can do it properly because he's just done. And, he's depressed. But she has a proposition for him, and we find out what that is in book 3. I am excited to share that with you next week. Before I go, I have to say, it was very hard trying to pick a song for Lillian and Marcus. Most of the love themes, they just pop out at me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is perfect for this book. And for this book, this was really hard. And I had quite a few that I was thinking about, but I finally settled on that classic wedding song, All of Me by John Legend for Lillian and Marcus. And then also I'm throwing in a bonus, a song that Lillian would sing to Sebastian, which is Your Woman by Whitetown. Yes, that's right. I couldn't help it. So anyway, join me next week, won't you, for the most loved, most hated Devil in Winter. Can't wait to do it. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're enjoying whatever it is that you're reading. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you thought, because man, are there a lot of thoughts to share about this book. Until next time, thanks so much. Take care. Bye.